Ever wondered what happens when the steely gaze of Superman meets the sneering smirk of a truly awful talk show host? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because you're about to find out. This isn't your typical celebrity interview gone wrong. This is a full-blown, popcorn-worthy showdown. We're diving headfirst into the explosive confrontation between the one and only Henry Cavill and a host whose name shall remain forever shrouded in the mists of infamy. Let's just call him Bartholomew. Bartholomew, a man whose charm could curdle milk at 50 paces, was notorious for his condescending interviews. He treated A-listers like they were auditioning for a role as his personal lackey. So, when the supremely composed Henry Cavill sat down opposite him, you could practically feel the tension crackling in the air, thick enough to spread on toast. The setup was classic Bartholomew: snide remarks disguised as questions, interruptions that felt like personal attacks, and a general air of disrespectful dismissiveness. But Henry? Oh, Henry had other plans. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was a masterclass in controlled fury, a perfectly executed takedown of a bully disguised as a broadcaster. We'll delve into exactly how Cavill handled the situation, the sheer shock on Bartholomew's face, and the roaring applause that erupted from the previously stunned audience. We'll unpack Cavill's surprisingly sharp wit, his calm demeanor in the face of blatant disrespect, and how he managed to completely flip the script. Get ready for a deep dive into the aftermath, the whispers in the green room, the frantic calls from Bartholomew's publicist, and the fallout that spread like wildfire across social media. We'll analyze his every move, dissecting the brilliance of his response and leaving no stone unturned. But here's the thing, this story doesn't end neatly. It ends with a question mark, a lingering uncertainty, a tantalizing clue hinting at something much bigger brewing beneath the surface, something that will leave you breathlessly anticipating the next chapter. Picture this, the plush, velvet chairs of a late-night talk show, the kind usually reserved for witty banter and insightful conversations. But tonight, the atmosphere is thick with a different kind of energy, the kind that crackles before a storm. Our host, Bartholomew, a man whose ego is inversely proportional to his talent, smugly adjusts his perfectly coiffed hair. He's introduced with a fanfare that feels wildly disproportionate to his actual achievements. The camera pans to Henry Cavill, looking impeccably dressed, but with a subtle tightening around his jaw, a telltale sign that something's amiss. The interview begins, and Bartholomew wastes no time in establishing his brand of hostility. He starts with a seemingly innocuous question about Cavill's latest project, but his tone is dripping with sarcasm. He interrupts Cavill mid-sentence, sneering at his answers and making snide remarks about his physique, his acting choices, even his personal life. It's a masterclass in being unpleasant, delivered with the practiced ease of someone who's perfected the art of being a jerk. The questions become increasingly personal and irrelevant, veering into territory far beyond the bounds of professional courtesy. Bartholomew probes Cavill's relationships, making unsubstantiated claims and insinuating scandals. He uses leading questions designed to trip Cavill up, twisting his words and taking them completely out of context. His body language is aggressive. He leans in, invading Cavill's personal space, his eyes narrowed in what he probably thinks is a display of dominance. The audience, initially amused by Bartholomew's usual brand of abrasive humor, starts to shift uncomfortably in their seats. The air is thick with tension, a palpable sense of something about to break. The setup is complete, the stage is set for the confrontation. And let me tell you, the confrontation is something else entirely. The breaking point arrives with a question so ludicrously inappropriate, so deeply personal that even the studio audience gasps. Bartholomew, basking in what he perceives as his triumph, leans back, a smug grin plastered across his face. But then something unexpected happens. Henry Cavill, who has maintained an unnervingly calm exterior throughout the ordeal, doesn't flinch. He doesn't stammer or apologize, he doesn't even visibly tense. Instead, a slow, deliberate smile spreads across his face. Bartholomew, he begins, his voice low and measured, each word carrying the weight of controlled power. I've been incredibly patient. I've answered your questions, even the ones that are frankly none of your business, with the utmost respect. But your behavior has crossed a line. The camera zooms in on Cavill's face, capturing the intensity in his eyes. It's not anger, it's something colder, sharper, a quiet determination. He continues, his words precise and deliberate, each syllable slicing through Bartholomew's smug facade. He calls out Bartholomew's unprofessionalism, his blatant disregard for boundaries, and his attempts to manipulate the conversation. He dismantles Bartholomew's flimsy justifications with surgical precision, exposing the host's insecurity and desperate need for attention. He doesn't raise his voice, he doesn't resort to insults. He simply uses facts, logic, and a chillingly calm demeanor to expose Bartholomew for the unprofessional hack he is. Cavill's words hang in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. He doesn't shout, he doesn't storm off. He simply sits there, his gaze unwavering as the weight of his carefully chosen words sinks in. The silence that follows is deafening, broken only by the nervous shuffling of the audience and the audible gulp Bartholomew makes. The confrontation is over, but the reverberations are just beginning. The aftermath? Let's just say it's far from over. The silence following Cavill's takedown is almost palpable. It's the kind of silence that hangs heavy in the air, thick with unspoken tension and a sudden shift in the room's energy. Then, a single clap. Hesitant at first, then another and another until a wave of applause erupts, sweeping through the studio like a tidal wave. It's not the polite, perfunctory applause usually reserved for the end of an interview. This is something different entirely. This is applause born of genuine admiration, a spontaneous outpouring of support for a man who just stood up to a bully. The audience, initially shocked into silence, now realizes what they've witnessed, a masterclass in controlled fury, a perfectly executed takedown of a condescending host. They've seen Henry Cavill, the seemingly unflappable Superman, reveal a different side, a side that's both incredibly composed and fiercely intelligent. The initial discomfort and awkwardness are replaced by a shared sense of exhilaration. You could almost feel the collective exhale of relief, the shared understanding that someone finally called out Bartholomew's unacceptable behavior. The faces in the audience reflect a mixture of shock, awe, and a touch of gleeful schadenfreude. The cameras pan across the audience, capturing a range of expressions from open-mouthed surprise to delighted grins and even a few tears of appreciation. They've witnessed a moment of genuine defiance, a rebellion against the pervasive culture of rudeness and unprofessionalism. The cheers are deafening, a powerful testament to the audience's approval and their newfound respect for Cavill's unwavering composure and sharp wit. It's a moment of collective catharsis, a shared experience of witnessing someone finally stand up for what's right. This wasn't just an interview, it was a rebellion, and the audience was wholeheartedly on board. But the story doesn't end with the applause. Oh no, not by a long shot. Bartholomew, his face a mask of stunned disbelief, sits speechless. The smug grin is gone, replaced by a look of utter bewilderment. He tries to interject, to regain control of the situation, but the words catch in his throat. The applause continues, drowning out any attempt he makes to speak. He fidgets, his perfectly coiffed hair now slightly disheveled, a stark visual representation of his crumbling composure. The meticulously crafted image of the unflappable host is shattered, replaced by the reality of a man utterly out of his depth. The director frantically tries to regain control, signaling for a commercial break, but the audience's enthusiasm remains undeterred. The applause continues, a powerful wave of collective defiance against Bartholomew's earlier arrogance. Cavill, still seated calmly, offers a slight, almost imperceptible nod to the audience, acknowledging their support without breaking his composure. It's a gesture of quiet gratitude, a subtle acknowledgement of the shared victory. The commercial break arrives, but the tension remains. Will Bartholomew attempt to salvage the situation? Will he apologize? Or will he double down on his offensive behavior? The break feels interminable, a pregnant pause filled with anticipation. The camera focuses on Cavill, his expression unreadable, hinting at a deeper game being played beneath the surface. The applause eventually fades, replaced by a hushed expectancy. The audience is restless, their attention riveted on the two men, waiting to see what happens next. As the cameras roll again, Bartholomew attempts a weak, unconvincing smile. He clears his throat, trying to regain his composure, but the damage is done. His attempts at regaining control are feeble, his carefully constructed persona irrevocably damaged. He tries to steer the conversation towards safer territory, but the air remains thick with unspoken tension, the memory of Cavill's masterful takedown hanging heavy in the studio. This isn't the end, it's just the beginning of a much larger story. The unspoken question hangs in the air, what will happen next? Cavill's response wasn't just a spontaneous outburst, it was a calculated, controlled demolition of Bartholomew's unprofessionalism. His calm demeanor wasn't a sign of weakness, but a strategic choice. By remaining composed, he elevated himself above the fray, refusing to stoop to Bartholomew's level. He didn't resort to insults or personal attacks. Instead, he used logic and reasoned argument, exposing the flaws in Bartholomew's approach with surgical precision. This measured response was incredibly effective. It allowed him to maintain the moral high ground, showcasing his intelligence and self-control. The contrast between Cavill's composure and Bartholomew's increasingly frantic attempts to regain control highlighted the difference in their character and professionalism. Cavill's calm demeanor served as a powerful counterpoint to Bartholomew's aggressive behavior, making his points even more impactful. The audience, witnessing this masterful display of restraint and intellect, naturally sided with Cavill. Furthermore, Cavill's choice of words was crucial. He didn't simply react, he responded. His carefully chosen words exposed Bartholomew's unprofessionalism without resorting to personal attacks. He highlighted the host's inappropriate behavior, drawing attention to his disregard for boundaries and his attempts to manipulate the conversation. This strategic approach ensured that his criticism resonated not only with the audience but also with viewers at home, many of whom would likely have experienced similar encounters with unprofessional interviewers. His measured response wasn't simply about winning a verbal sparring match, it was about setting a standard for professional conduct in the media. It was a powerful statement about the importance of respect, boundaries, and accountability. And it was a statement that resonated deeply with the audience and viewers alike, turning a tense confrontation into a moment of shared empowerment and a testament to the power of calm, controlled defiance. But the aftermath reveals a deeper, more unsettling truth. The interview continues, but the damage is done. The air crackles with unspoken tension. Bartholomew, visibly shaken, attempts to steer the conversation towards safer, pre-approved topics, but the shadow of the confrontation looms large. He tries to regain his footing, but his words lack conviction, his body language betraying his inner turmoil. The audience remains subdued, their earlier enthusiasm replaced by a quiet, watchful attentiveness. But then, a subtle shift. As Cavill answers a seemingly innocuous question about his upcoming projects, a flicker of something else crosses his face, a hint of calculation, perhaps even a glint of steel in his usually warm eyes. He speaks briefly about his commitment to choosing projects that align with his values. He mentions the importance of professional respect and accountability in all aspects of his career. The camera lingers on him for a moment, as if sensing the subtle shift in the atmosphere. He finishes his answer, a polite but firm conclusion to the discussion. The interview ends, but the quiet tension lingers. Later that night, a leaked email surfaces, allegedly from Bartholomew's network. It's a curt message filled with threats and veiled warnings. It's addressed to Cavill, and it seems to suggest that this wasn't just a confrontation on live television, it was a clash of wills with far-reaching consequences. The email hints at a larger power struggle, a conflict that extends far beyond the confines of the television studio. It speaks of a network determined to silence dissent, to protect its image at all costs. The question hangs heavy in the air: will Cavill back down, or will he escalate the conflict? Will this incident be brushed under the rug, or will it spark a wider conversation about accountability and professional conduct in the entertainment industry? The email and the unspoken threat it contains leaves us with a chilling cliffhanger. The battle, it seems, is far from over. The aftermath is just beginning. So there you have it, the story of Henry Cavill's unexpected showdown with a less-than-stellar talk show host. We started with a seemingly innocuous interview, quickly descending into a masterclass in unprofessionalism courtesy of Bartholomew, our delightfully smug antagonist. Cavill, however, wasn't having any of it. His calm, controlled response was a thing of beauty, a perfect blend of wit, intelligence, and unwavering composure. He didn't just shut down Bartholomew's rude questioning, he dismantled his entire persona, leaving him floundering in a sea of his own arrogance. The audience's reaction was electric, a spontaneous eruption of applause that served as a powerful testament to Cavill's actions and the audience's appreciation for his handling of the situation. The aftermath was equally compelling, showcasing Bartholomew's stunned silence, his desperate attempts to regain control, and the lingering tension that permeated the air. Cavill's strategy was brilliant, a calculated move that used logic and reason to expose Bartholomew's flaws and set a new standard for professional conduct. It wasn't just about winning an argument, it was about sending a message. And that message? Well, it seems that message might have resonated a little too loudly. Our cliffhanger ending, with its leaked email and veiled threats, leaves us wondering what the future holds. Will this be a single incident quickly forgotten in the whirlwind of Hollywood drama? Or is this just the beginning of a much larger conflict? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, this story, filled with unexpected twists and turns, serves as a reminder that even in the seemingly superficial world of entertainment, integrity, professionalism, and a little bit of well-placed defiance can go a long way. So, the next time you encounter a bit of unwarranted rudeness, remember Henry Cavill and his masterful takedown. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find the courage to handle it with the same grace, wit, and unwavering composure. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a sudden urge to rewatch that interview and maybe even write a strongly worded email of my own.